You know, a lot has already been said online, in Twitter, academic Twitter, other places about the Scott Galloway Business Insider article about COVID-19 and the survival of the American university. I want to throw in my opinion on this, that I think this is much, much more of a rhetorical problem than it is a numbers problem. Of course, numbers can be rhetorical and math can be rhetorical, but that's exactly my point, is I think the difference between whether your university is going to thrive, survive, struggle, or perish, his 4-quadrant solution to what nearly every university in the United States is going to end up in one of those 4, according to him. The solution here is to talk about it, not to have a spreadsheet solve it. Now, let's talk a little bit about his method, because it has been critiqued, and I'd like to talk about some of the positive things about his method first. First of all, he didn't just do an income to expenses ratio. He brought in lots of other things, such as student life perceptions and all kinds of other data, salary indicators, which is part of the critique, the endowment, and also how many international students attend the university. I think this is great to have a diversity of different kinds of ways to kind of perceive, but when you look at the spreadsheet, it is a little confusing what kind of relates with what. But from what I've been able to figure out, it's outlay versus expense, primarily payroll, and then how many foreign students are responsible for your tuition, how high is your tuition, and how big is your endowment to catch you should you slip off of the tightrope. There is a lot more numbers now if you think about it that way, but at least he's tried to provide a much more of a gradiated approach. And having the 4 quadrants means that you have universities who are deeply within one quadrant, such as thrive, which is where you'd want to be, survive, maybe closer to the line between survive and struggle, which is not a bad place, or one of the worst places, deeply within perish. That's not good. You don't want to be there. But I think that the solution to this isn't very clear in Galloway's article. Should universities just close up and apply for grants and emergency aid? Should they encourage all of their staff and faculty to apply for unemployment? What should they do? Should they just have online classes only? Should they fully open and just say, we're just going to risk it all? The survival of the university is more important than the lives of any particular student or student's family. I'm not sure what the solution is. I mean, I think that last one's a little extreme, and I don't think he's proposing that at all. But what is the solution here? And I would say the solution, if you like the Galloway article at all, is to look at it rhetorically. And academic Twitter has started that rhetorical look by being extremely critical of his metric in one area, which is professor salary, a hot button issue anyway. Please keep in mind that most faculty and most universities are contingent. That means they are contract faculty. They're not provided any kind of health benefits. If they are, they have to buy in at a much higher rate than full-time employees of the university, even in administration. And they're only provided a flat rate for a class, somewhere between $2,500 to $4,000, maybe a little bit more in some places. It's not a lot of money. And there are also restrictions on how many classes you can teach. So most places you can only teach maybe 3 or 4 a semester. So even at the high rate of $4,000, it's only $16,000 a semester. That's not a lot of money. You'll have to teach at more than one school, which means a lot of commuting time, no health benefit, and no matter what the class costs you to teach, you're just paid that flat rate, no matter how many hours it consumes in terms of grading, assessment, evaluation, emailing and meeting with students, etc. It's not just the hours in the classroom. There's a lot that come with it. So that's one factor in it too. Secondly, not everybody's a full professor. The salary he used to calculate the average is the full professor salary, which I think he sees the national average as something like $140,000, somewhere around there. That's an extremely high salary for a professor. Although there are full professors who make that, and there are full professors who make a lot more than that, somewhere at $200,000 or $250,000. Not uncommon among full professors who are career professors. They've been doing it for 25, 30 years or more. That's not uncommon, but we're dealing with maybe 5% of the professoriate, if that. The majority of professors are what they call associate professor rank, which means they have tenure and they're a permanent part of the university. They have life contracts, and those people are paid something well below that. The jump from associate to professor is where you start to get into those larger pay rates, because being a professor shows that you have demonstrated exemplary research, exemplary scholarship, exemplary service, exemplary teaching, and associate shows that you are very, very good at these things, but you're not a shining star, not yet, you might be on your way, but their pay is somewhere around 70, 80,000. Then you have assistant professors who are on the tenure track. They're working to earn tenure, and they are paid somewhere around 60,000. So that's the majority of the university is going to be contingent, assistant, and associate, not full. So when you look at that average, you're looking at something that's probably pushed down to around 60,000, which is less than half of Galloway's estimate. That really changes his metric quite a bit. And I haven't done the math, but my suspicion would be that it moves all the schools in those different quadrants a lot more towards the lines and towards the center, which means it presents a much more unclear picture of who's going to thrive and who's going to perish and who's going to survive and who's going to struggle. Much, much more of a dancing on the line between these categories. So that's what the metric gets us if you think about it in terms of a more fair and more accurate salary adjustment for his stats. But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to discuss is the human factor here, the rhetorical angle of how you can move your school out of the struggle and perish quadrants very easily if you just have some conversations. 3 groups involved here: administrators, faculty, and students. The normal way of conversation is administration talks to faculty and vice versa, and faculty talk to students and vice versa. But hardly ever do you have students talking to administration. And hardly ever do you have faculty talking to faculty about and to the students. You have people blaming one another for the problems of the university. Administration blames the faculty for wanting too much and not really understanding the business side of things. Faculty blame administration for being on a one-track mind of the business model of the university and having that revenue stream and not really understanding the goals and the scope and the structure of the university and inquiry and the life of the mind. And students saying professors don't really understand that what they're here to do is help us determine what careers we want and what skills we need to do those careers. And that's how the students see it. What are some solutions here? All of these groups should ask a simple question, which is, can my idea of the university be globalized? My model of what the university should be, can it be globalized? Would it make everybody happy if this was the model? And everyone is going to say no. It has to be a balance between those things. So for the administrator, it's like we need a revenue stream where people are going out and getting careers from the majors that produce that. Well, I'm sorry, but if you modeled it based on that idea, you would toss out tons of majors that have led to some great careers. In fact, most humanities graduates find out that the career that they enjoy doing really wasn't invented when they were in college. Like, we're always innovating and tech is changing everything in radical ways. So that English degree or philosophy degree can really lead to a career that they might not even know exists. So the career model is not globalizable, although it is important to have those traditional degree paths to career available for the students who want them. Likewise, faculty don't really ask the question of if the university was arranged around teaching and research as the primary focus of everything. And if research was the model of the university, that would exclude both a kind of a sustainable model to give them that space and income to do it, and exclude a lot of the students who, quite honestly, come to college not really knowing what college is about, not really knowing what they're going to do. Their parents told them they were going to go, or they decided to go because they thought they would make money. And they need some mentoring and guidance here, and a research-focused university isn't going to do that. And the student model. If it's a job placement site, the university loses a lot of the beautiful things that you don't know that you want out of your university experience, which is serendipity, the value of inquiry, the accidental meeting of people and the exchanging of ideas, and the shaping of questions that are going to haunt you and follow you for the rest of your life. I mean, haunting in the most positive way. Don't think paranormal activity or anything. So anyway, the question is, how globalizable is that experience? And I think a conversation about what you want the university to be is a wonderful starting place. The second is, what adaptations can we actually do when we're a digital university, when we're online, when we don't have a campus, when we have a partial campus or a shadow of what a campus should be? What innovations can we make to make the university kind of work in the way that it's meant to be, with the community aspect and things like that? And I think this is a place where faculty can share ideas about things that they're doing in their classes to create that. Students can talk about their expectations of what they want their days to look like. And administrators can talk about what's possible and impossible in terms of budget, revenue, income, and outlay. And that conversation needs to be had. I think highly reflective, honest conversation about one's expectations and one's aspiration for the university is the way to go to have a lot more control over what is going to happen to your university and what quadrant you're going to wind up in. The final thing is, I think that we should attend a lot to the things that make the university valuable that we don't think about, and that's the accidental connections that are made. I talked about this in my last video a bit too, but what can we do to ensure that students feel that they have time to interact with one another, time to bump into random people and hear about their life story, time to run into their professor in line at the coffee shop and chat a little bit? How are we going to make these accidental moments that have much more meaning than getting an A on a paper or a test really happen in the digital university? I don't think that we even know where to start with that. And that's why I suggest that we have a conversation about our ideological assumptions about what the university should be first, which is what's a university to you? What does the perfect university look like to you? And I think that conversation, if it's had between these large groups of people, will open up innovative ways to make sure that everyone feels belonging and ownership of this incredibly important community to everybody. If the university fails, every one of those aspirations will fail. Every reason why people are at the university won't exist anymore. The stakes couldn't be higher. But the solution is quite simple. Let's have a conversation about what we assume and what we expect, and then try to find the tools to make those things into a palatable reality until COVID-19 gets under control.